Welcome back to the woods, builders. Today we're taking a look at Middle Age Pangaea, Age of Bronze. A very fun nation here. Poor Pangaea is just behind the times. If this wasn't the early era version of Pangaea, they would be very, very strong in the early age. However, it's not early age, it is the Middle Ages. Let's see if bronze can still hold up in a age of iron and steel. Pangaea is a woodland nation inhabited by wild beings connected with nature. Half-men such as satyrs, centaurs, and minotaurs serve the lords of the sacred grove deep in the forest. In ancient times, the woods covered much of the world, but that has changed. Man is no longer beast, and animals are no longer wild. The world of the wild is disappearing. Centaurs have developed civilized societies and donned armor. The Pangaea, guardians of the groves, have decided that it is time to act to preserve their dwindling habitat. Things are not going well for Pangaea. They are losing out as the world industrializes and the forests are chopped down to feed the forges. They are finding themselves more and more cornered. For national features, we have our races are forest beings of a couple different types. We have stealthy troops, and we have I believe all of our troops heal battle afflictions. That's a really nice bonus to have. How often do we look at our troops and we see them just riddled with afflictions, or they die from being crippled or limping on the march? Well, we don't have to worry about that here. Those will heal up. We'll get a little bit of that, but it's very, very nice. Your favorite commander takes an arrow and somehow gets crippled. Well, that can actually heal here. So that's a nice bonus. For military, we have satyr and minotaur infantry. We have centaur cataphracts, warriors, and archers. Good little mix here. Like I said, unfortunately, this is the Middle Ages, and our bronze is going to hold us back. For magic, we have magical tunes. We'll talk about these. They're good. I don't know if that good enough to denote here. We're very good at nature. We're pretty good at earth. We're pretty good at blood. And we have a sprinkle of water and glamour. Especially glamour is very, very limited. Our priests are average. We have a recruitable priest level 2. For scales and blesses, we can increase our growth limit to +1. Building-wise, here's another area that we're desperately behind in. We build primitive forts. Not even normal forts. We build primitive forts. Other people are building castles as a matter of fact, and the really advanced people are already building citadels. And here we are building mud forts, essentially. This hurts a lot. We also get the bonus of temples only costing 300 in forests. A nice little bonus here. We have a national spell to summon in forts, and we could definitely do with some cheap temples and buffing up the infrastructure in any forest we can get, or making more forests is something we're very interested in. Overall, not a bad mix here, just held back again by their backwards technology. For sites, we have the Grove of Gaea. This is a pretty interesting one. It increases growth by a maximum of 2. This is in our capital, of course. Produces 5 nature gems per turn. Allows us to get our sacred. We also have the Hidden Grove, where the little creepy goat boys are. We have the Pandemoniac as another cap-only unit. Units and sacreds. We have a pretty good little mix here of different units, ranging from not very useful to pretty darn good. Starting off, we have the Harpy. One thing to note here is we have several troops that can be recruited in all forests. This is actually really powerful, especially in the early game. If you could grab an extra forest or 2, you might be able to almost double your recruitment. Are they going to be your best troops? No, but we are a bit of a horde faction, in my opinion, and numbers are going to matter for us. So here's one of the first units that can do that. Harpies themselves, not particularly interesting. I will say, of course, they are flying, they're stealthy, they have forest survival and recuperation. They're dirt cheap. 7 gold, 1 resource, 3 recruitment points. You could pump out easily 10, 20, 30 of these and a leader for them. And while they will probably not be able to take most provinces that have like 11 PD, unless they are just absolutely garbage, they're not undisciplined, so you can hold an attack rear. That's already a pretty good bonus. Let's say that the nation you're fighting has like a level 1 priest as their default PD commander. You could kill that. Or just something else that's relatively light. Note that we don't have great attack. We do have 2 though. So that's going to be a good attack density. You can have 3 of these in a square, so you could get 3, 6, 9, 12 attacks in and get that harassment penalty on defense stacking. However, if they're armored at all, we're going to struggle with 9 piercing damage to get through any serious armor. Overall, I think these have a place. They're a little bit of a finesse tool to use, however. Once you get buffs up and running, they would sure love it if you could give them, let's say, bark skin, so they have at least a little bit of protection. Maybe they could take a hit, or giant strength to up that damage a little bit. Either one of those would be pretty good. Any buffs you could give them would definitely help. Next up, we have the Satyr Sneak. This is also a forest recruit. This guy's rough. Okay, 9 gold, 3 resources, 6 recruitment points. Now, as a chassis, satyrs are pretty good. 12 HP, 11 strength, 10 attack. This guy has 11 defense skill, 6 protection. That's our furs. We have 1 natural protection, no helmet. Stat-wise, stealthy, forest survival, recuperation. They're undisciplined, and they cause unrest. The problem with these guys is 9 morale, and we do not have particularly great inspiring leaders. We have quite the opposite, actually. So more often than not, these guys are going to end up running away earlier than you'd like. It's a little bit awkward. And we have a better option that does something very similar. Let's take a look at him next. Well, yeah, let's take a look at him before I talk about. We have the Reveler. If you want a similar chassis, I think this is the better one. Now, the Reveler is not any forest recruit. That's one thing that holds him back. But 16 gold, 3 resources, 14 recruitment points. Now we're talking 15 HP, 12 strength, 11 attack. So 11 attack on Bronze Spear and a hoof attack. So we have 2 attacks. If we look at the Sneak, he only has the 1. I think the premium is well worth it here. Doubling your attacks is pretty good. They're stealthy. They're berserking +3. Very nice. We have the forest survival, the recuperation. We are still undisciplined, but now we at least have some combat stats that we're not going to instantly crumple. In addition, we have morale 12 and we berserk. So you're going to take a hit, you're going to go berserk, is what that boils down to. We cause unrest of 0.5 each. I like these quite a bit. They're stealthy, and we have stealthy commanders that can lead them. A group of these in the enemy's backline, if you can't find a target to attack, you can just sit still with, I think you can lead 50 of these with your cheapest leader, and cause 25 unrest per turn. In multiplayer, sometimes it is really hard to notice when unrest is getting out of control. So a group or 2 of these in the enemy backline, just seeding that, wrecking their economy a little bit, maybe causing some bad events, some brigands to move in, stuff like that. And as a raiding unit against PD, these are actually really good because they berserk. If you have 11 PD and you have 50 of these guys, or even let's cut it in half, let's say 25, I give you even odds on 25 v 11 PD with 2 attacks, and you're going to go berserk. Remember, when you go berserk, you get extra attack and strength and protection. So our protection is going to go up a little bit. It won't be... It might go up the full 3 here. It's funny how armor and natural protection stack. But either way, you'll get some extra protection. But more importantly, we'll have 14 attack and 18 damage. 14 attack and 15 damage. That's respectable. That's very respectable. I like these a lot as a raiding force. And even for your main army, you could do worse than these because of the berserk. That is very strong. I really value berserk highly, very highly. If you could get some buffs on these guys, throwing a bark skin in there would definitely help the protection, make it decent, especially combined with that amount of HP and berserking. If you could give them giant strength, again, that would just stack here really, really well. I think that would be, yeah, these are quite good killers, actually. I like them a lot. Now, do remember, they cause a lot of unrest, so you don't want these sitting around in your own lands. If you get them, you need to have them out and in the enemy's lands attacking and raiding over there. Next up, we have just the satyr. This is also a recruit in any forest. I want to like this guy. I tried to make this guy work. He has a bronze spear and furs. That's kind of standard issue. 12 HP, he costs 9 gold, 4 resources, 6 recruitment points. Overall, like our base stats, essentially. 10 precision. He has a javelin. The javelins would actually be pretty useful for us. However, just like that first guy, 9 morale kills this. He just runs at the first few losses, and you're going to have atrocious losses. So I end up not liking these guys, which is unfortunate. I wish I had access to these javelins here. Next, we have the satyr. This is kind of the equivalent for like a militia unit for us. 9, 4, 6, same basic cost. We have a bronze spear, fur, and a buckler, so now we at least have a shield. However, we still have that 9 crippling morale. Should be noted here, I didn't call this out, but we have really good magic resist on these guys. Just food for thought. But yeah, 9 morale. Again, they're just going to break like instantly. Finally, our last satyr unit is the satyr hoplite. And he's pretty good, but he brings in part of the problem of our nation. So 14 gold, 24 resources, 24 recruitment points. This is a problem. We have primitive forts that are not particularly good at producing extra stuff for us. We want to transition things into forests, which if you're changing farmlands into forests, you're going to end up lowering the carrying capacity of population, aka lowering your recruitment points. We are somewhat incentivized to go turmoil, and we'd love to get away without production, but I think we need some production on middle-aged Pangaea. Now, what do we get for this cost? 14 HP, 11 strength, 12 attack. That's pretty good base stats. We have that high magic resist. I like satyrs as a chassis in general. He has 10 morale. That's like bare minimum baseline for a troop. It's better than the 9, but again, we don't have good leaders, so just keep that in mind. We have the forest survival, recuperation, and formation fighter. So the formation fighter really saves these guys. 16 protection is fine for a middle-aged troop. Not the heaviest of stuff, but acceptable. Totally fine. However, we're equipped with a bronze spear, which is a little unfortunate. If this was an iron or steel spear, the damage would be higher. But we're pretty good at the attack. And remember, we're going to have 4 of them per square. So okay attack density to actually pretty good. We're equipped with a bronze cuirass, a hoplite helmet, and a hoplon. So we have a really strong shield. This is good enough, especially with the shield, that we can take okay crossbow fire. And we have recuperation, so we'll heal afflictions if they survive the battle. The problem here is, ironically, formation fighter, you need a lot of these guys to make a line, and they're very expensive. In the game behind us, I didn't take production, and my capital could only produce like 6 or 7 of these guys. So that's not even 2 full squares per turn. Something to keep in mind here. They're not forced recruit anywhere, which even if they were, you wouldn't have enough recruitment points and resources. You do need a fort for these. So I like them, but they're hard to get in enough numbers. You're going to be very purposeful where you're going to send these guys. Next up, moving into our centaur units. First up, we have the centaur. Can be recruited in all forests. This is 25 gold, 4 resources, 12 recruitment points. You get 20 HP, 13 strength, 12 precision. This is the male centaur. Pretty decent chassis. 40 stealth, forest survival, and recuperation. We have a hoof attack and a bronze dagger, so they're okay if something gets to them. And they're wielding a longbow. Longbows are fine in middle age and actually make for a decent counter battery against crossbows. Even if the crossbows are targeting enemy archers, they'll get 1 volley off. Whatever you have that survives will get 1 or 2 extra volleys off before the crossbows reload and fire again. So this actually can be pretty decent there. We're decently accurate with them, and we have enough strength to do a little extra damage. 15's okay. Even most crossbowmen are not going to be able to take a 15 piercing attack. These guys are fine. Next up, we have the centauride. Can be recruited in all forests. This is the female centaurs, noted for being slightly physically weaker, but better with precision. Unfortunately, the short bow is not very good in the Middle Age. It's not. If you're fighting somebody that is unarmored or very lightly armored, these are pretty decent. I'd like a group of these on, like, fire closest and keep distance. Would be very annoying for somebody to deal with. But a second you have a standard middle-aged troop with, let's say, 16 protection, 12 is not going to cut it. I think you're better off with the slightly less accurate longbows, but have a much better chance of punching through. Should be noted that these are our only dedicated ranged units. I do like these a lot. In the early game, I was getting him in my forest areas as my just extra troops, and I was doing some fire and keep distance shenanigans on that. Do note, you can get yourself in a lot of trouble doing that by dragging things into weird places that end up flanking your leadership. Just be aware, be careful. Early age satyrs stream is a good example of the bad things that can happen if you're doing that, so be careful. Next up, we have the centauride warrior. She's okay. 30 gold. Do note here, not forest, any forest. 30 gold, 11 resources, 17 recruitment. That lighter female chassis. Still decent stats, though. Really high defense. 17 defense is up into, like, elf levels of defense. 9 protection is light troop, but that's fine. Stealthy, forest survival, and recuperation. Has a bronze spear and a hoof attack, and a javelin. Has centaur barding and a shield. These are okay. I think they're overshadowed by their male counterpart, however. Good morale at 12, too. Which one are they overshadowed by? This guy right here. The centaur warrior. If you're going for essentially light cav is what these are, this guy wins because he has the stronger male chassis, almost as much defense, and he's wearing, I think he has better protection, in fact, 9 versus, oh no, I guess they're the same. She's not wearing a hat, though. I don't think that covers that. Yeah, he has a hat, which, I don't know, he's so light, I'm not sure that's relevant, but maybe. His big thing, though, is he has Berserk. 22 HP, 12 morale, and Berserk is really good. That's going to keep you in the fight. I think you could stealth raid with these guys if you don't want to go with the Revelers. A bronze lance, so you do get that first hit lance bonus, and a hoof, so he has 2 attacks. So 2 of these to a square still gets you 4 attacks out, so attack density is fine. Stealthy, Berserk, force survival, recuperation. Okay light gear with a decent shield. These guys are fine. Again, use them as light cav. I think you'll be relatively happy with these. And they don't break the bank too bad, especially on resources. Moving up to our heavier stuff, we have the centauride cataphract. This is a decent choice. 30 gold, 28 resources, 17 recruitment points. So again, we're in that conundrum where we need production, I think. We are on the lighter female chassis, 15 defense, 12 precision, 15 protection. Do note again, she doesn't want to mess up her hair, so she's not wearing her helmet. I'm not sure that's the best plan. They have a bronze lance, a hoof attack, and a javelin. I like these, actually. They're okay. Forest survival and recuperation. I wish she'd put on her helmet. Like, this is an OSHA violation, I'm pretty sure. So, I don't know. The male equivalent, the centaur cataphract, he is wearing his helmet, and it's the hoplite helmet, which is one of the better helmets you can get. 21 protection is enough, especially combined with the shield, to maybe even take a bolt to the head and survive. 35 gold, 32 resources, 21 recruitment points. Pricey, very pricey. We'll look at when we look at the board what that means, but that's expensive. That's really expensive. For survival and recuperation. However, recuperation on essentially a heavy cavalry chassis is really good. We just played middle-aged Perrine, and our Mouflon knights had recuperation, and it was very good. We blessed them with that. It was very, very good. Keeps them alive a long, long time. And we don't have the penalty here of having a mount and a rider, So if we live, we live. And we'll recoup hopefully off our limps and our cripples, etc., etc. We're using a bronze lance and a hoof again. So again, 4 attacks out of a square is fine. Good armor and 19 combat speed for a heavy cav is actually pretty darn good. Not bad. And even encumbrance is only 8. That's not the worst, if I'm being honest, for a heavy cav like this, like a cataphract. I like these guys. I wish they maintained their berserk. If they had that, they would be absolutely amazing. Fortunately, they don't. So very usable if you want some heavy cav. A very heavy scales build. I could even see maybe going this route. Do note, again, we need about 50% more resources than recruitment points. Next up, we have some minotaurs. We have 2 varieties. We have the recruit and forest variety, wearing furs with a bronze battle axe. 40 gold, 6 resources, 6 recruitment points. 13 morale is good, especially combined with berserk. There are tramplers, forest survival, recuperation, undisciplined. These are okay. If you're fighting somebody that trample would be really, really good against, I think these are fine. Big bonus that they are recruit and forest, and they don't require a lot of recruitment points or resources. So you can actually amass a decent number of these relatively quickly. And they have good morale with berserk, so you don't have to worry about them retreating into your own troops. Pretty unlikely that will happen. If you fight somebody size 4, they hit very hard, but low attack density and a bad attack. When they berserk, that will go up to 13. So that's not too bad. And 32 damage will kill most things. These are okay. They're definitely usable. Again, kind of a finesse troop to use. Then we have the War Minotaur. These are not forest recruits. You have to get these out of your forts, and you wouldn't be able to reform them anyways. 50 gold, 23 resources, 18 recruitment points. So very pricey here. However, we have those good Minotaur stats. We have the trample, the berserk, forest survival, and recuperation. But now we're backed up with a bronze cuirass instead of just furs. That's 6 extra protection on the body. When we go berserk, we're going to have 8 natural protection, so our head will have 8. This is quite the brawler. He's better trained, so now we're going to have 14 attack when we go berserk. If you're fighting other giants, like heavily armored giant troops, these guys would be excellent, absolutely excellent at chopping them down. Not much to say here other than they're just very expensive, and they're going to compete with your other fort only. So they're competing with your cataphracts, they're competing with your revelers and your hoplites. So we have a lot of like fort only things that are expensive that we want to try to get out. For our cap only sacred, we have the white centaur. I believe this is essentially the same chassis as early age, still just as good. 55 gold, 12 resources, 29 recruitment is a little high. Not too bad though. They are sacred, stealthy, berserk +3, force survival, recuperation. We have stealthy blessing commanders, so you can do sacred stealth raiding. And as cavalry units, they're pretty good. We have the bronze lance, the hoof, and a javelin. We're wearing the centaur barding, a shield, and a reinforced leather cap. Now, unfortunately, that only totals up to 11 on the head and 9 on the body. This is not enough protection to keep them fully alive. They really do need something to keep them going, but they were surprisingly survivable with 23 HP and recuperation. Overall, I think these are good enough that you're going to want to build a bless for them of some sort. Would I hell bless them? Probably not. But I do think you want a medium-low bless for them. They're definitely going to help you expand, because we do not expand very well, unless you take an awake expander, in my experience. Heroes, commanders, and prophet. For heroes, we have 4 heroes, and they're pretty decent. We have a multi-hero white minotaur. These guys are really nice when you get them. They're our best leaders by far. They have 100 leadership, so that's a +1. And they're inspirational, so that's a +2. That greatly helps out our low morale troops, like a lot. They are priest level 2s, and they're sacred. They're tramplers, berserk +5, force survival, recuperation. They are tied for our best blessers. They are definitely our best leaders. I like these guys a lot. I would not have them going into melee to do anything. I like these enough that I would consider giving them a little bit of gear. A hat at least, maybe a shield, and uh, maybe like a leadership scepter or something would be nice. But even just a hat and a shield or some armor, I like these a lot. If you get them, you're going to be very happy. And a reason that you may not want to dump misfortune on the nation is just to have a better chance to get more of these guys out. Next, we have the Black Bull. This guy is a unique pandemonic. He has Earth 1, Nature 3, Blood 3. I believe that's our highest blood. 19 research, poison resistance. He's stealthy, berserk 7, forest survival, recuperation, and bonus supply. Overall, if I got this guy, he's probably doing magey stuff. He's not so like ridiculously out there that I would like kit glove him. So I definitely think I would have him enter combat with us and do combat-y things. He is going to be our best blood mage. So something of use there. We have the Harpy Queen. Really nice when you get here. You're going to be happy. She's not much of a fighter. She's more of a mage. She's our only air access, but we do have air natively with her. So if we could get out and do some sight searching, we could do some Alquills. She could do aim blesses, some arrow shield, some mist form buffing. Unfortunately, you're only going to get one, but she's definitely helpful. I would probably keep her around for crafting and sight searching more than combat, but she's there. Could be an option to make your profit. She would be Holy 3. She could give herself personal mist form. She could cloud trapeze elsewhere. Even if you don't cloud trapeze, she flies very far. Could be very interesting. And she's stealthy. Great combination. Do note, she's a Dominion monster summoner. She summons in harpies. It's fine. Finally, we have the White Satyr. Again, he's a good leader. I don't think he's multi-recruit. I think you only get the one of these. 150 leader is our best leader, plus the inspirational. He's usable, whatever. He'll lead an army for you if you get him. He's fine. For commanders, we have a decent spread here. First up, we have the Black Harpy. This could be a leader of 10 harpies for a exceedingly light raid group. More likely than not, though, these are going to be our scouts. They're flying, stealthy 60, forest survival recuperation. Having scouts that are flying move 34 with stealthy, you can scout the entire world in like year 1. Very, very nice there. Very, very nice. Pinging thrones and whatnot, because they fly off the map, they're pretty safe. I want to say flying might give you a better chance to retreat safely. I might be wrong about that. Overall, excellent. They're a little bit cheaper resource-wise than a standard scout. So these are better than standard scouts because they fly and have higher stealth. Excellent. Very good. We have a Satyr Commander. This can also be recruited in all forests. He has 60 gold, 23 resources, 1 recruitment point. He has the Satyr Chassis, so 16 HP, decent stats here. Good defense, actually. Good protection. He's not terrible. Won't instantly die if something gets to him, hopefully. Unfortunately, he's only leadership 50. So 2 squads of non-formation, no bonus. However, he has stealthy 40, so he is an option to lead our revelers or our satyr sneaks in backfield operations. And he would be fine at that. Wouldn't break the bank. If he dies, whatever. Him leading 50 revelers would be a pretty good little raid force. You're not going to want to fight armies with it, but you could definitely kill light PD with it. And if you can't find a good target, well, you just leave behind your droppings of unrest. Next up, we have the Minotaur Lord. Pretty decent. 95 gold's pricey, 31 resources, 1 recruitment point, 27 HP, 17 strength. That's pretty decent. He is a trampler, size 4, of course. Berserk +4. He is a bronze halberd and a bronze cap, giving him 18 and 19 protection. What I would love to do with him is give him the Boots of Giant or whatever that makes him a size bigger. So he'd be size 4, or excuse me, size 5. And just have him be a army trampler distraction unit. I think that could be pretty interesting. A couple of these guys just sprinkled in. You could, because they're tramplers, you probably don't want to give him a weapon. You could give him some boots and a shield and I think he could go to town on the right target, especially weaker trampleable troops that can't pierce 18 too well. Do note, we could also bark skin him. Could be pretty good there, and just let him go to town. To make him an actual thug, he'd be okay. Again, shield, and in that case, well, I don't know. He's cheap enough that maybe you just go with what you got. He's interesting. He's very tempting to try to do thuggy things. He's not going to be a good thug. No magic paths, but he could be interesting enough to maybe warrant an attempt to use him. Next up, we have this Centaur Commander. 100 leadership. That gives you a +1. However, he's uninspiring. A -1. So at least now we have formations. He also has map move 16, which is the same as the satyr. So the difference here is mainly being able to get into formations. Other than that, though, I guess he also doesn't stealth. So that might be a thing. But them being the same speed, you're mainly getting this guy to either lead more troops and or put them in formation. As a fighter, he's okay. He has the heavier gear. That's something, I suppose, for him. Note, he is not a forest recruit. He's a fort only. Next up, we have the Centaur Hierophant. Can be recruited in all forests. This means that you would need a temple and a lab, but you could otherwise recruit them. That's actually semi-useful. If you had a forest, you could drop temple lab, and that would allow you to recruit these, and then later on, maybe use our spell to summon a fort there if you needed to. It might be something. He is 170 gold, 4 resources, 2 recruitment points. Got the 23 HP, which is relevant to him, 13 precision, pretty good. Pretty good morale. 50 leadership is notable. This is probably who I would lead small raiding groups of sacreds with. And the reason being is he's going to stay relatively safe. Deploying the far back, have your troops hold an attack closest. He's going to do like bless, and then depending on whether he gets his nature or earth, if he gets nature, he'll bark skin, he'll eagle eyes, and then either fire his longbow or move up and do magic. If you get the earth, you're going to like personal iron skin and then fire your bow. That's pretty handy. He does have the longbow for a researcher, 7 research for 68 gold. He does meet the efficiency standards. Pretty nice there. He is stealthy 40 again. Just for comparison here, our sacreds are also 40, so we're not losing out there. So him plus, I don't know, 2 turns worth of white centaurs definitely is a light raid party and can take lighter provinces when you're out expanding. Next, we have the Centauride Hierophantide. Probably saying that 10 times fast. This is, again, 170 gold, 3 resources, 2 recruitment points. She's 1 resource less because she's using a short bow instead of a long bow. Again, priest level 1. She is nature and water. So I do try to recruit these until I get 1 or 2 waters to go out and site search for me. Water is actually kind of relevant for us. We'll talk about that more later. Otherwise, she's similar, and I would use her similarly. I'd have the troops on hold and attack closest. She would do blessings, and then whatever buff she can do, and then move up, and she'll probably shoot her bow. For her, I would probably have her cast spells more than shoot the bow, since I don't like the short bow. But either one works, and it keeps her relatively safe if you don't get completely overwhelmed. Recently, we did Ashdod, and when we were expanding with our sacred groups, we had to use this unarmored old man priest with a staff and no armor, and he loved running up and getting into melee and getting himself killed. These ones won't do that. They'll stop and fire their bows. Next, we have the Dryad. This is 310 gold, so this is kind of pricey. 1 resource, 2 recruitment points. As a chassis, she's like a satyr almost. Only 11 HP. In fact, she's almost human. 11 HP, basic human stats. Does have really high magic resistance. She comes in with Nature 1, Priest level 2, and 100% random of Water, Earth, Nature, Glamour. This is our only Glamour access, and it's only 1/4 of the time. That's so incredibly low. I wouldn't count on Glamour to do anything. If I get one that has Glamour, I'm going to get out and site search. We would love to break into higher Glamour. Because we have such high nature income, combine that with some Glamour income, we could do a lot of summoning from Conjuration. We would absolutely love that, but it's just not going to happen at 25% chance. 9 research for 124 is not going to be efficient. She is sacred. She has awe 3. Stealthy 65, very high. Force survival recuperation gives supply bonus because of the nature magic. And she has seduction. Seduction is pretty good. Against male targets, you do essentially like an assassination attempt. Well, you do a seduction check. If you succeed, you can bring them over. So it needs to be a border territory. And if you succeed, they will just join you. Can be very, very powerful. I tend to find, for whatever reason, seduction doesn't work that often. And if you do fail that, you go into an assassination attempt. Having awe and guaranteed nature makes her a pretty good assassin. Set her up just to do a swarm is probably an auto win. You could give her a few nature gems or a cornucopia and just set her up to do that. Like swarm, bark skin, cast spells is probably fine. And you would probably never lose an assassination attempt. It would be very hard for you to do because the swarm will keep things busy and she'll probably start spamming our magic tunes. And if nothing else, we'll put the enemy to sleep at some point and we'll probably win. Overall, pretty pricey. Not the worst seductor we've ever seen for cost. 310 for seduction's not the worst. She's okay. Not going to see a lot of these probably. Next, we have the Pan. 425 gold, 1 resource, 4 recruitment points. Somewhat pricey, but not too bad. Guaranteed 2 earth, 3 nature, and 100% chance of earth or nature. So you're looking at a earth 3 or a nature 4. Both of those are very powerful. If you get the earth 3, remember in combat, you're going to earth power up to 4. Very, very nice there. And a 10% chance of the same plus blood. For a researcher, 340 gold for 17 is terrible. Efficiency, we have the most overpowered ability in the game. Ask Clutch Carlos. Animal Awe 3. Poison resist, stealth, forest survival, recuperation, supply bonus, beast master, and monster summoner. We'll look at their summons here in a minute. Overall, very strong mage. And he's not cap only, so you can get a lot of these out. This is a relatively affordable price for a slow to recruit mage, and this is very combat capable. You can do summon earth power, you can do strength of Gaia, you can do big battlefield of both branches. I think you're going to like these guys a lot. Get one at least early and go out and get site searching so you can get the incomes. He can make you native dwarven hammers and earth boots. Very strong there. So with the Earth 3 guy, putting on boots takes him to Earth 4, and a single in power gets you to Earth 5, and you can even do global Earth magic. Same with the nature. A nature 4 guy gets a thistle mace. He's up to nature 5. He can do globals for you. Very, very strong. Finally, we have the Pandemoniac, which is a cap only. He is nature 3, blood 2. Now, comes in cheaper at 355. So if you're just looking for combat nature magic, he's actually a little bit better. Now that's here or there because he also loses the earth access, so he can't summon earth power, but he gains blood, so we could do a small Sabbath and do a rejuvenation. We're not really a major Sabbath nation. If we could find some other cheaper blood mages, like just a blood 1 dude from somewhere, these would be very strong in Sabbaths. We would really like that. For randoms, we only have a 10% of earth, nature, blood, so probably not going to happen. 15 research for 284 is horrible. Blood resistance, poison resistance, stealth, forest survival, recuperation, supply bonus, beastmaster +1, and monster summoner. Overall, I like these guys a decent amount. I do think that Pangaea wants to do a little bit of blood work, maybe crafting some items, maybe doing some rituals, especially like blood fecundity, but I think we might also want to do other things. So getting a few of these out, this is not the worst blood searcher. It's not efficient, but one of these guys plus a sanguine dowsing rod, you'll be pretty happy with the results. What do those guys summon in? They summon in Manads. These are women that the Pan have lured into the forest and drive them crazy. and they're naked women that claw your eyes out, essentially. They have 100% human stats. This is a base human chassis, except for morale. They do be crazy. They have Berserk +1, Forest Survival, Undisciplined, Bad Patrol bonus. I actually kind of like these guys. Other than our expensive troops, these are as good, almost, as our satyrs, our junky satyrs, and maybe arguably better than some of them because we Berserk, and so we're not going to run away. You'd be surprised the work that these do sometimes. They absolutely love getting buffed. Bark skin, giant strength, any of the weapon buffs. They would love any of those things. And they're free. The monster spawning is influenced by turmoil and unrest. So if you do go high turmoil, you'll get absolute tons of these. As you can see here, yeah, this is just a few turns, maybe 4 or 5, that I've been having these come up. Now, they're not going to be the best. It depends on their target in combat. However, they still give you a full siege strength, and they still give you 0.3 siege defense. That's kind of important. We struggle with sieging a little bit, and our forts suck. So we need to have a lot of defenders inside of them if we're going to have any hope of holding out for any amount of time. I think that's a very big bonus. Even if you don't like them for combat, I think that sieging and siege defense is something that they're okay at. At least they're berserkers, if nothing else in that category. Throw these like in the back and on the sides and have them filter in behind your army and catch flankers, catch flyers, filter into your lines as you have losses. They're okay. Do note, though, watch out for HP routes. That is a thing that they could trigger. Who would I make my prophet? We start with a satyr. I think, was it a satyr commander? Now that I say that, I'm questioning myself. No, we start with a centaur commander, which is actually pretty decent. He has better protection and I think better defense skill. No, one less. Either way, I think I like him. He's fine for a prophet. He doesn't have anything else to do in combat anyways. You start with him so you can do a turn 1 prophet. If he dies, the Heartbeat Queen would be a very strong contender, the heroine here. I could be argued into a Black Harpy just for the mobility and stealthy, so you can run around and preach and claim thrones. That's not going to be very good as a combat one, though. Just too weak of a chassis. You could do one of these guys, but again, I don't like doing it on strong mages because it's a waste of their magic paths. We want them casting magic, not doing holy stuff. So I think it's going there. I mean, I don't like the idea of a Berserk prophet if I can help it, so he's probably out. So I think the Centaur is probably the best bet. Or the Harpy Queen. I would love to do that. I think that's a decent option. National items and spells. For national items, we have no national items. For national spells, we actually have a smattering of national spells. In Conjuration, at 5, we have Monster Boar. Requires 3 nature, 10 nature gems. This is not the best. Essentially, you send a random event that they totally won't know is you of a monster boar terrorizing a province, and it will continue to raise unrest. And I think it does a little bit of pop kill until somebody comes and patrols it out. We do swim in nature gems. We get 5 per turn anyways. I could see maybe if you've got some revelers in the back line and you're really trying to cause a bunch of unrest, I could see it throwing a couple of these on the map. Generally speaking, though, not particularly good. Next, from Alteration, at 5, we have the Fort of the Ancients. This is a Nature 4 ritual for 35 nature gems. What this does is this summons up a fort. It can only be cast in forests or shallow seas. If we look at the map here, our standard primitive fort is this. 30 admin, 1 bonus commander point, that's standard. Recruitment bonus points, 75%. We only have 750 supplies and a wall integrity of 500. We have wall defenders of 24 centaurs. If we look at the summoned fort, this is 25 administration, so a little bit less supplies, and less wall integrity. So these are weaker than the ones that we build, which is very unfortunate. It would be nice if these were equivalent because we're already behind or even a little bit stronger. However, you can summon this in a single turn. So let's say you take a forested throne. Turn 1, claim throne, build lab. Turn 2, summon in fortress. So in 3 turns, you can have a forted throne if it is in the forest. That's not the worst thing ever. If you're safe in it, you'd probably want to build your fort because it's a better defensive structure and it'll hold out a little bit longer. However, in a pinch, or if you just don't care, like you're not too worried about it or whatever, it's like throne rush towards the end of the game, but you do want a fort, pretty good there. I think the strongest bit here is we have Pans, like this guy I recruited him normally, he can cast it natively, and I could forge him a ring of water breathing, and I can summon it in shallow ocean. So I think, I'm not sure if Gorge would count for that. Not 100% certain, but it doesn't say it has to be in kelp. It specifically says shallow seas. So I think anything that is not labeled as deep sea, like this one, I think will apply. So I could actually summon in a fort here. If you notice, I have a guy underwater here. I cannot build underwater forts, but I can summon them. And especially in a game where there isn't an underwater power, it's very hard to siege down underwater forts with non-underwater nations. It's hard just to get the numbers to do it. So a strong reason that you might consider that, like if I took this throne, I could actually fort this. That's pretty darn good. That's pretty darn good. So I like that spell, despite the fact that I wish it was just a little bit stronger of a fort that we summoned in. Next up, our final school is enchantment, and we have a couple ones here. These are our magic tunes. These are the same as early age Pangaea. We have the Tune of Fear, Tune of Growth, and Tune of Dancing Death. All pretty interesting. Casting times 100. Area of effect is 25. That's a really big area of effect. 25 individual squares is like a 5x5. That's pretty darn chunky. Only cost you 5 fatigue. Damage is Fear 3. Fear is very strong in Dominion 6. And this will stack all the way up to a -10 morale penalty. A lot of early fear effects only go to -5. So this is actually really strong. I mean, our line troops only have 10 morale. So this would absolutely wreck us. What's the problem? It's area of effect 25, not range 25. So this is like a point blank area of effect. So to get this off, you need to have a Nature 1 mage on advance and cast spells. Do note, your people who have bows, if you have them on stay behind troops, they're going to stay behind troops and fire their bow. They're not going to advance. So you do need to be on advance and cast spells. And sometimes that can get you in trouble because they'll advance all the way into melee. But I think it could be worthwhile. We have relatively cheap Nature 1 mages. Even if we found some indie Nature mages, normally indie Nature mage 1s aren't particularly great. You use them to site search if you don't have anything else. I think if they're cheap enough, you may consider recruiting them because this is just so good. This is such a good spell. You would love it if you had a single line in front of you of your own troops and you were right behind that casting this into them. Very, very nice. The Tune of Growth, same basic stats. However, we do Entanglement. And Entanglement, I gotta find that. What's it under? I think it's Tanglevines. This will do. So it's going to give you this type of thing where you're going to summon in vines on people. Strength plus Dominion random number, which is 2d6, versus 19 to get free. So a standard human plus 2d6 versus 19. 2d6 average roll is 7. So that's not going to succeed most of the time. They have to roll above average to be able to get there. The difficulty is increased or decreased by growth or death scales. Also +1 in a forest. So if you're growth 3 in a forest, this is a 23 check. Good luck humans ever making a 23 check to get out of that. Good luck, because it's not going to happen most of the time. Oops. So this is pretty good. And it's area effect 25. You could affect a lot of squares. I mean, let's say you hit 3 squares full of humans. That's 9 dudes you just took out of the fight for at least a turn, bare minimum. And it's only 5 fatigue. That is dirt cheap. Again, though, the problem is you need to be very close to be able to cast this. Tune of Dancing Death. Again, the same base stats. Have to be very close to get it off. This is another very strong one. You trade 5 of your own fatigue for 31 plus armor negating fatigue. The plus is going to be based on your nature. So if you have a nature, I don't know, 3 guy do this, he would do 33. I don't think that's much of a difference. 31 fatigue is really good though. At 20, you start taking combat penalties. At 50, you stop doing natural ranged attacks like Mind Burn or something, and you switch to a melee script. At 100, you pass out, and you just lay there. And people attacking you can do armor defeating hits, which are kind of like crits. They get through your protection better. This is very strong. So, all 3 of these, I think you'd be happy with any of them getting cast. I think Fear is probably the best, but Growth has its place depending on the target. And Dancing Death is still fine too. So any of these you'd be very happy with. And note, they are level 0, so you start the game with these. Very nice. They're a reason that I almost wish, in this game I started with it, that we didn't research any evocation until we had to. Because this unlocks Vine Arrow and maybe Web or Poison Darts, and I don't want them casting that. Ironically enough, Web is way worse if we're in high growth and a forest, or even just high growth. Web is another option. Now, note Web does have the advantage of being range 25, but it can only hit 3 squares, whereas the other one, in theory, could hit 5 squares worth of people. So, options. Also in enchantment, we have Awaken Hamadryad. Costs 25 nature gems, nature 4 ritual. Again, we can do this natively. Normally, I'm not the biggest fan of these. However, I think they have a use here in Middle Age Pangaea. This is the Hamadryad chassis. 110 HP. Size 10. Protection 18. That's all natural. All natural, baby. Does have miscellaneous items, so you could give us a bracer of protection for 3 more, taking this up to 20, probably 2. I don't think that's going to stack 100% with natural protection. In combat, you get 3d6 harpies at your side at the beginning of combat. That's kind of whatever. Why do I like these? You can summon these. Hold on, let me back out of that a little bit. Does this require a forest to cast? Yeah. Can only be cast in forests and cave forests, but that's okay. We can summon these in any place we can summon in a fort, or if we get a forest where we have forted. I think these make for really interesting fort commanders, kind of. Because they are nature 3, and they have blunt resistant and piercing resistant. We've had games, I want to say it was EA Roost stream, where we had something similar, and we struggled to kill this before our men routed. Why do I think these are so good? Nature 3, plus those tunes we just looked at. Deploy her at the door of your fort, and then crowd the front door with a bunch of junk. And while your junk's getting killed, she's casting Tune of Fear. She's casting Dancing Death. She's casting the Growth spell. That's going to be very hard for somebody to get past if they don't get in there very quickly and kill her. She has high enough nature. You could do something like, I would probably start with Howl. You could do Swarm Spam. Things like that. Just give yourself lots and lots of chaff that will be on the board while she casts those other spells. Do note, she is susceptible to fire, but blunt and piercing resistance is pretty good. A lot of people are still using spears. If they come in with the slashing weapons, you still have 18 protection, which is very respectable. Poison resistance is a magic being, doesn't eat, forest survival, gives you 30 supply, has growth power. Do note that I believe this is going to be, I want to say it's HP, strength, attack, and protection. If I'm right, that means our protection would be 21 natural protection, where we have growth 3. 21 is very respectable. We're getting into the neighborhood of like almost expander levels. Innate spellcaster, so even when they get to you, you can keep casting your tunes, and that's going to be incredibly hard to deal with. Heavily armored troops that get to you are going to already probably be a little bit tired. You'll dancing death them to sleep, and then they just stand in the way of your other troops, and you're going to end up morale routing before this does. And even if we rout, if they can't kill me, we can't move, so the enemy will rout before we do. They are a bad researcher. Just food for thought. Although no upkeep, so in the theory of how good you are, that's fine. With Nature 3 also, this is not a terrible chassis to do some of your Conjuration summons. If you're doing Nature something, with a 3, Awakened Vine Ogres, okay, that's something maybe. Doesn't have a hat, unfortunately, so we can't put a Vine Bracelet on. Here's how, like I was talking about before, and we can natively do that. So a very high fatigue cost. So she would put herself to sleep for a minute doing that, but that'd be fine. We'll have other things in front of us to buy us time. If you want to use Monster Boar, she could cast that for you. She could do Forest Trolls, etc., etc., etc. Lots of things she can cast natively for you. Forest Tribe, Troll Tribe. This is another one. This does summon in a Troll Shaman. Nice one to do, and she could do it rather than having a Pan have to do it. So I actually like them relatively. I would probably summon them in forts that are maybe in danger, just to have that combat ability there. I like them. It's kind of an oddball. Normally I don't like that chassis very much. For other magic, of course, we're going to go up Conjuration, probably to at least Strength of Gia in the later game for our Pans. This is a spell that gives you Nature Magic +1. So very powerful to buff you there. It gives you regen and bark skin and strength. So just a nice little combo spell to get your guy up for 20. Saves you script time, essentially. Very, very nice there. Beyond that, I don't think we care about most of those things. Alteration, you're probably going to want to go to 5 for Fort of the Ancients. If you're going to go that high anyways, maybe look at going up to Wooden Warriors, or maybe even going up to Oaken Army. I think that would be very good. Creeping Doom, other things from here are pretty nice. We can do Eagle Eye stuff. We could do Cat's Eye, which gives us dark vision. This isn't one I talk about too often, but at 5, for Nature 2, we also get Blood Poisoning. A range 30, 100%, Precision 100. It's only 20 fatigue, and it gives 15 plus poison magic damage. So on a Pan, who's Nature 3 or 4, 16 damage, that's basically an auto hit, is not bad. That is very nasty. And if you get poison, remember you're going to have that ongoing dot. And poison gives you stat debuffs based on how high the poison ticks are. So even a giant, if you don't kill it, is going to suffer quite a bit here. And we have lots of Nature 2 availability. Something kind of interesting. And then, of course, just other self-buffs. From Evocation, I mainly think we're interested in Breath of the Dragon or Poison Arrows. Breath of the Dragon, somewhat short range, but it gives area effect 4+ where it hits. 7+ armor negating poison. Good way to fight things that are like Olm or Middle Age Abyssia with just heavy troops that, frankly, our bronze equipped troops are going to really struggle with. Yeah, I think that's the only ones I care about there. In construction, Thistle Maces are important. Possibly Sanguine Dowsing Rods are important. A handful of acorns on your Seducers makes them much safer. Handful of acorns on Blood Searchers makes them a lot safer. Barkskin Amulet on your Blood Searchers too, just to keep them safe if they get attacked. Other things, you could build vine bows for your troops. In fact, let's actually back up. This is probably worth looking at. I think there's enough interesting things here. Thistle Mace, I think, is your biggest one out of the one-handers. In two-handers, you could go for Tree Lord Staff if you go all the way to 7, and that gets you Nature Magic +2. In bows, Construction 5 is going to take up the Vine Bow. We have a lot of people who can self-buff Precision. You can have some very precise fire rear troops, and this does Entanglement on hit. And remember, Entanglement's going to be hard for things to get out of. That's vaguely interesting. We have lots and lots of nature gems, so it's affordable. Vine Shields, very nerfed from what they used to be, but still very good. This would be one where a Vine Shield plus the boots on a Minotaur could be interesting, or you could give him Eye Shield, which does Eye Vengeance against things that are trying to attack him. In helmets, Ivy Crown gives you Vine Man summon bonus. Again, we have tons and tons of nature income and some high nature people, so we could summon in Vine Men or Vine Ogres. I like Vine Ogres, and this will get you an extra one for very, very cheap. I think that's something we might be interested in doing. Other things there, we would like to find things that give extra morale. So this would be nice, however, it's astral. So we can't natively do it, unfortunately. Armor-wise, we do have access to the Cathoric Lion Pelt, and we do have the gems for it. I think this is interesting. We have a lot of naked dudes, and this is a body armor slot. If we look at our troops again, we do have body armor slots. So this would just give you an all-around invulnerability roll, or invulnerability protection. Oh my gosh, can I click that, please? I think that's worthwhile. That's just really cheap for us. We can definitely afford that. Beyond that, if we could get a little bit of water income, you could use a Shambler skin, or you could use a Ring of Water breathing to get underwater. For boots, I actually have to find them because it's so rare I build them. Oh, maybe I made that up, that there were boots that gave you larger. I was thinking about the boots that gave you trample. All right, well, enlarging him one way or the other would be a way to go. I'm pretty sure there's an enlarging item in here. Beyond that, I think things of interest, bracers of protection for some of our guys that have lots of natural protection but no slots. We can do broth stuff. We can do the handful of acorn stuff. Beyond that, we have the pathing to do it. So this girdle is really good for reinvigoration +3 on some of our casters. We can do the nature research boosters, and we actually have the income that we might want to do that, especially if we do Mother Oak. Again, another ritual that we might want to rush, and that we could do a lot of research bonus here. Cure-all elixir. We actually can get to magic or nature magic 5 to be able to make it, and it gives you disease healing. Very hard to get that otherwise. And cornucopia for 2 temporary nature gems. Very nice for people to cast like Swarm, or most of the cost of a Howl. I would spam these for sure if I went up to Construction 5. I do think we are a nation that likes Construction 5 quite a bit. Let's bring all of that together. So Pangaea is a nation that is behind on the times. Unfortunately, our bronze equipment and primitive forts really hold us back. If we were building castles and we had just basic iron gear, we would be in a much better position, but we don't. So we just have to make do with what we can do. Showing off my recruitment here. Now, in this build, I did not take production, and I regretted it quite a bit. So we look here. This is my capital, so I'm going to want sacreds. And then let's say I want some hoplites. I could get 2. Okay, let's look at a different fort over here. This is a built fort. I can get 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 hoplites. Now, not the highest resource fort, but not the lowest either. I mean, I've got plains and mountains. I've got a forest. So, like 94 resources here. These are not the lowest amounts. And yeah, I can't get very many. If I wanted to switch those guys out, and instead I wanted to get some of the centaur cataphracts, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I can get 5 of them. So we're going to be really constrained by production. And I think we want to get production scales on our pretender. In this game, I want it noted, why can I never get this lucky in an actual stream? We have a river here, and I took heat 1. We have a river here as a natural border keeping me 100% safe. I had a random event that I got a squad of really good underwater expanders. So I was able to get underwater for free. I can get down here and summon my fort. And then I would recruit troops until I could take this, and then I could fort it. My first, I literally expanded into a throne on tier 2, or on turn 2, and I was able to take it with almost no losses. And it was the Throne of Spring, which gave me an extra growth, and Mage of Spring, which gives me air access. How ridiculously strong is that? So this actually turned into a forest on turn like 20. This is turn 27, just automatically. And it gave me growth 5 in my capital, growth 4 elsewhere. Absolutely ridiculous. Then my next throne was the Throne of the Artificer, giving us a construction bonus. So now I have a construction bonus plus Dwarven Hammers. And look what I'm doing here. We're forging Alquills with our Mage of Spring. So I just wanted to point that out. How ridiculously lucky was that? Too bad we couldn't have a stream like that. Beyond that, I only had 1, 2, 3 forests near me, which was unfortunate. In the early game, I got some of those longbows out of here, and it was useful. I've ran around and I've templed a whole bunch because I want to keep this river from being able to freeze over. And I have the cheap temples in forest, so getting around and doing that. And I'm in a war with Pyrene that I'm definitely going to win. I'm sieging their capital right now with my sacreds. This is my sacred stack. This is all the sacreds I've gotten all game. We're at 62 at the moment, survivors, and pretty good, pretty good. I definitely think you need those sacreds to expand, though. Not having those is rough. Your starting troops are garbage. You start in with, I think, like, it's like 20 satyrs and like 20 satyrs, like these two guys. It's horrible. They're absolute garbage. In my first expansion, I took the throne and everybody retreated except for my sacreds, essentially. And that happened several times with my expansion parties. So, very, very weak. You need these sacreds to be able to get out on the map and expanding. To wit, let's go look at some pretender designs. Pangaea has a pretty good spread of chassis, including a couple unique ones. We have the Great Centaur Great Sage, and we have the Syntharide Enchantress. Unfortunately, why would I take her over the regular one, other than the fact that they took the regular Enchantress away? And she is 120, he's 130. You basically get Stealth and Nature 1, and you get Fortune Teller 15, Adept Researcher, and Astral. I would take this guy first. He is 20 points cheaper, and he's an Inspiring Researcher. I think this would be an okay build if you wanted to do a Magic Research Rush build. I would go Great Sage, unfortunately. I wish these guys were equivalent in cost so that you could get them. I just don't think this is worthwhile. Maybe Fortune Teller if you value it, maybe. In Dominion 2s, we get the Carrion Dragon. This is not totally unique, but look at the amount of tax he gets. Absolutely ridiculous. He does shapeshift into a Carrion Lord. Could be interesting, but for the price of 180, Death and Nature, what are we going to do with that? He's undead, so regen doesn't work on him, unfortunately. I don't know. I don't know what we do here. I'm not going to put the brain power into this. We'll probably look at this in depth when we look at Asphodel, but it's a chassis that could be interesting. If you want to go expanders, I do think the Bulls are decent. Either one, just depending on whether you would like Earth or you would like Blood. Like if we took this guy, I would go hard skin because his protection's only 12. Definitely not enough. Definitely need hard skin. And that's kind of pushing me to want to go for regen. Can we afford this? We need some Dominion at least. Oh. Okay, that's okay. Those are bad scales. I'm in a scale mood, I think, lately, but this is okay. Hard skin on him, plus the earth magic. The earth magic is going to give you resistant to afflictions. Plus, he has recuperation. He does berserk +5. So hard skin is going to give us. Oh, this isn't even enough. Hang on. Oh no. Probably do that. Oh, that's terrible. Oh, that is terrible. Yeah, I don't think this is happening. I don't know. Maybe if you are a misfortune enjoyer, maybe maybe um +5 plus an additional 5. So 22 natural protection, and then he buffs himself with personal iron skin. That's fine. That's enough. And then plus regen, he'd be fine. I definitely would like to get at least some self buff, but you could probably start on easier provinces before you have it. And then once you get regen, you could also buff yourself with personal regen to double up on that. That would be pretty nice. He definitely can expand. That would be fine. I'm sketchy about those scales though. Beyond those, I'm not the biggest fan of any of these other chassis. Moving up to Dom 3, we do have two relatively unique ones. We have the Titan Mandroga, and the Mother Mandragora. They're interesting. I think Asphodel has more interest in those than we do. Beyond that, I think you might be interested in manipulating your scales some more. So maybe do remember we have growth +1 natively, so you don't need to pick somebody with growth. In fact, you're not getting anything out of that. And we do have some synergy with Turmoil. So maybe one of these Turmoil people, like Mother of Monsters, could be interesting here. She's going to summon in some freebies, and we don't hate Turmoil necessarily. So let's see. On her, I think we would go like Blood Surge, Enchanted Blood. I hate Barkskin Bless on nations that can do it natively. Maybe some extra Berserk. I wouldn't hate that. I don't know. So, but I think this is workable. I think you could do it. Beyond her, moving up to the Dom 4s, we do get Irminsul. And I do actually kind of like him only for the fact that he gives you a starting site for an extra nature gem. I think an imprisoned Irminsul with some just stat boosting bless could be pretty good. He's only 140, and the gem gen takes our native nature gems up to +6. That's pretty good. The monolith, we don't have magic weapons. That is one major weakness that we have. We could do something. This is very expensive, but we could go hard skin. Oops, that's not even high enough. Magic weapons. Maybe we stop there. Maybe we go for regen if we're going to go that high. Something like that. And we would go we'd probably have to go dormant in this case, and then I could back off some of that bad. Something like that. I don't like this build, but you could do something like that. Maybe you drop the regen and you just go, and we could drop these down quite a bit. Something like that. And then that lets us go awake. That's okay. I'm not in love with that either, but something like this maybe. We could add in this. I like this a lot more. That's pretty good. That's pretty playable. I'd like to get more Dominion though, so I probably, I mean, we're going with a heavy bless, so we want to be able to get stuff out. Something like that could be an interesting little build there. And finally, we have the Fountain of Blood. I actually like this guy quite a bit. This is where I did all of my testing. Let's actually take a look at some of my test chassis. So if we view created, so I have 3 different varieties here. I'm going to just take you straight to the end one. This is Hardskin Enchanted Blood. He is dormant, so this is a greedy build. And Enchanted Blood's pretty good. It's enough to keep our Sacreds mostly alive, especially once they have Hardskin, because they do go berserk. What I like about him is he ups magic and turmoil, and I feel like we have really good synergy with both of those. So I went extra turmoil. That's just going to give us lots of crazy events. And we're going fortune and magic for free gems, free labs, free mages. In one of my test games, I got a Death 1, Blood 1 mage for free. Excellent. That breaks me into a little bit of death. I would love that. We go growth 3. I do want to change the entire world into forests. Everything we have basically has forest survival, so it doesn't slow us down. It'll slow the enemy down a lot. Do note that changing things in the forest does not appear to change the resources, but it might lower the carrying capacity of population. So you might lower the population. If you're growth 4, you do plains. If you're growth 5, you do plains and farmlands. And we can do blood fecundity to get up to growth 5 if we want to do that. I did find that the Turmoil 3 recruitment was okay. Just pick places with lots of pop. And I found that the production 2 was needed. On those other games I was showing, not having a production really hurt. It really limited my troops badly. I was feeling it once I got past the early game, where I could get by just using sacreds. Beyond that, Earth 6 and Blood 6 means we can do some pretty high-end blood stuff, and we can do something like Father Ill Earth or Demon Knights. We can summon those in, and he's a really strong blood hunter. So maybe in the early game, you do 1 or 2 turns of blood hunting, and then you have your Pandemonic do his ritual for blood fecundity. And that's a way you could do that pretty darn efficiently. Beyond that, do note, I can't teleport anything here, so we are stuck where we are at. We're only going to have our single profit. Just something to note. I do find Hardskin on our Sacreds very good. Hardskin plus the Berserk kept them alive most of the time, and especially with Enchanted Blood, just letting them regen up a little bit, and having recuperation natively. The combination of those 3 things was absolutely fine. Do note we are missing magic weapons, and that is a pretty big hole in our roster, and it's something that we would love to patch up if we could. Okay, so that's going to be my pretenders there. I guess we're going to say, in conclusion, Pangaea, unfortunately a powerhouse if they were in the early age, but they are not. They are in the middle age, and that technology gap is starting to grow. However, don't count them out yet. We have good, efficient mages. We have okay efficiency on our research. We have a decent sacred, and we have some acceptable troops, even if they're a little pricey to get out. And I think we are a nation that is middle of the road, maybe slightly on the weaker side. I think there are plenty of middle-aged nations that outpace us, but we're also not bottom tier either. As usual, let me know what other builds you have here. I do think this is a nation that relies on their sacreds, at least in the early game, so your blessing is very, very important how you build it. If you've enjoyed this video, as usual, don't forget to leave a like on the way out. And if you're not already a subscriber, I hope this is the video that earned your subscription. If you'd like to go above and beyond, you could leave a super thanks, you could join us on stream and give a super chat, or you could consider becoming a channel member. Channel members get early access to pregame videos like this, usually about a week early, and often early access to whatever other videos I am working on at the time. And above and beyond that, you support the work of this channel. Very, very nice. I appreciate everyone, whether you support me financially or just hanging out and being cool. Thank you, builders. All right, builders, get out there and build yourself a managed forest, because we got to get on top of this before those dirty, dirty humans chop down all the woods. I will catch you on stream, builders. Babble out.